All right, hi everybody. My name is Ryan Winnew. My speech is going to be on military drones and the use of them. Before I go into my major claim and everything, I'd like to list out a couple of definitions. The first being that military drones are unmanned aerial vehicles that carry out surveillance missions and assassinations. The second is PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, and it's a common condition among military veterans that is caused by traumatic events and causes dangerous levels of anxiety. And the third is IEDs, which is improvised explosive device. Okay, so my major claim is that the use of military drones has substantial advantages over person-to-person combat. And I'm going to be supporting this claim with 4 other supporting claims. The first being that person-to-person combat is no longer the most effective form of war. The second is that drones reduce post-traumatic stress disorder. The third is that mistakes made by military drones are just as likely to happen with human soldiers. This is more of a counterpoint. And the fourth is that military drones have more room for improvement in fighting than human soldiers. Before I get started into the supporting claims, I'd like to first talk about a story. And this is a story that I will be tying back to throughout my speech. So in 2004 in Iraq, Sergeant First Class Robin Johnson was patrolling the streets with his platoon. They were looking for suspects, people who had some sort of explosives, IEDs, or possible suicide bombers, when a car started speeding towards them. He had to make a decision quickly, same with his platoon, so they wound up shooting the vehicle. Unfortunately, inside the vehicle was 5 family members, a mother and a father, an infant, and 2 little girls. And there was no real answer. They never found out why they came towards the people, because every single one of them were killed. And I got this story from Public Radio International. So during this story, he was asked, what exactly, how does this make you feel? And his response was, what was going on in his head at the moment? Now that his whole family is gone, they got up that morning and they ate breakfast together. They talked and they laughed and they planned out their day. And now they're gone. And he goes on to say that, I don't think people can understand. And he's talking about his fighting and what it's like to be there. You keep fighting, but it's hard to explain. We joke about it a lot. We kind of make jokes of it, that we're not human anymore. Like the humanity is dead in us. Okay, so here we go. So the first supporting claim, person-to-person combat is no longer the most effective form of war. Part of this reason is that enemies no longer identify themselves. They don't have uniforms. They don't go down the street like our soldiers do in perfectly identifiable uniforms and try to fight us. They look like civilians. We can confuse them with civilians every day. So every single time we have a soldier, ground soldier there, it's a moving target. It's just ridiculous. Suicide bombings and IEDs are difficult to prevent and are extremely common. According to reporter Robert Creeley of the Telegraph News, Al-Qaeda, one of our main enemies, uses media such as Inspire magazine to teach people how to make bombs. And it's not even just Inspire magazine, it's all through YouTube. It's all out there. And next part is that casualties and financial costs are high. And according to Linda Bilmes, a professor at Harvard University's Kennedy School for Government, the Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts taken together will be the most expensive wars in U.S. history, totaling somewhere between $4 to $6 trillion. Now, most of this, $4 to $6 trillion, actually will come from veteran disability checks, from benefits, and most of that is because later on stated in the article is that in order to get the amount of soldiers that we needed to fight this war, we upped the what we call payment and benefits of soldiers. Now, on the flip side of this, while in the air, drones are completely unfazed by suicide bombings and IEDs. they have nothing to worry about. In the situation with Robin Johnson, the drone would just be up in the air and there would be no threat, at least not to them. So the second part is that drones reduce post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, post-traumatic stress disorder is absolutely rampant in the military right now. According to the Department of Veteran Affairs, 11 to 20% of Iraq and Afghanistan veterans have post-traumatic stress disorder. And 10% of Gulf War and 30% of Vietnam veterans also have it as well. Now, it's not just an anxiety issue. Post-traumatic stress disorder can result in suicide or mass shootings. According to the Department of Veteran Affairs, 22 veterans commit suicide every single day. This is a study taken in 2010. And according to NBC, 16 shootings have been carried out by veterans since 2008. And that's only on military compounds. It's an extremely bad issue. And curing post-traumatic stress disorder is very difficult. There are methods to it. The Army has something called a red book and a gold book. And essentially, it's just supposed to identify that you're not alone, that other people have this post-traumatic stress disorder. There's surgery, which is expensive, and that's typically for people who are injured and need to have that corrected. There's drugs, which everything is pretty much experimental at this point. Therapy, also expensive, and every single one of these things requires participation, which is difficult to get. On the flip side, drones can't get PTSD. It's impossible. The only way that anybody could get PTSD from using drones is, our enemies, or maybe possibly the people who control them. Okay? The third is that mistakes made by military drones are just as likely to happen with human soldiers. Military drones do collateral damage. I'm not going to lie. They have bombs, they have missiles, they have some machine guns, and those things have little control. But the fact of the matter is that those weapons are also used by manned aircrafts who do the same tasks as drones. And manned aircrafts also have to deal with pressures, fear, anxiety, emotions, and those kind of things can get in the way. Ground soldiers, on the other hand, commit accidental shootings. And take, for example, Sergeant Robin Johnson's situation. That didn't need to happen. It didn't. Moving on to the last bit is that military drones have more room for improvement in fighting than human soldiers. Human soldiers have physical limitations that drones do not. They have fatigue, vulnerability, and on top of that, if we're talking about aircrafts, they have limitations in a thing called G-force, or gravitational force. And what this is essentially when somebody who's flying makes a sudden turn and that kind of stuff, there's a force that goes on them as well. Now, when that happens, if it gets too high, the pilot can actually pass out. And in that case, they'll lose the plane. Further progress in drone development can also reduce civilian casualties, especially people that we're targeting. Accurate weapons that can depend on precise calculations to kill our targets. And also, it creates constant surveillance. And so we can really figure out who the enemies are and follow them. So in conclusion, the use of military drones has substantial advantages over person-to-person combat because, person-to-person combat is outdated. Drones essentially will reduce post-traumatic stress disorder. The mistakes made by military drones are just as likely to happen with human soldiers, and military drones have more improvement in fighting than human soldiers. Bring our troops home. Thank you.
All right, we got to go really quick because I know most of you have to get out of here and would like to move on with your lives. Lion, I think the subject identification is interesting, but the way you present it is not as interesting as it could be. I think you could use your example about Robin Johnson as the attention device and then lead us into the notion that the drones could be doing these jobs in place of boots on the ground. That's the main issue that I think is problematic in your reasoning. There seems to be an assumption that the combat troops on the ground have no function except to kill people, and that the drones can kill people, and so that's all that they need to be able to do. And I'm not exactly sure that that is in fact the way the military strategy works, especially in the interventions that we have in the two places where this technology is being widely used right now. So I think you need a little bit more development on that. You get sidetracked on the cost of the post-traumatic stress disorder, and I understand that there's a value to that, but once again, that's an assumption that all the soldiers could be replaced. The presentation was 9 minutes and 17 seconds, so it was a little bit long, as you can see. All right, thank you all for your patience sticking around today. I appreciate that.